All right, all right, all right, all right, all right. Are we live? I never know. How exciting. We're going to find out. Guys, welcome. Look at this. Everybody's here already. This is what happens. Okay, I hope we're live. I haven't seen the little thing yet. Something's going to happen. I just want to give it a second. Make sure I'm recording, you know? All right, here we go. I think we're live. Dudes, it's Sunday. What is it? 8:22. It's about 10:10 Pacific. Let's have fun. I have been on YouTube since 2010 and only just now, today, broke 400,000 subscribers. It only took like 11 years. I'm so happy. You know, I got to say this because on YouTube, like, it was a platform I started on. Like, I love it. It's high quality. It's the thing, right? It's YouTube. But like, for some reason, we have like 2.5 million subscribers on Facebook and like almost 500,000 on Instagram. What the hell's going on with YouTube? Do I just need to start doing like these kooky jump cuts? Like, hey guys, I'm about to do a show, and then cut. And then every like third word is cut out. So I just talk like this. Maybe that's what I need for YouTube. Come on in. Donna, welcome to the Super PAC. That's a member on YouTube that subscribes and gets cool private shows along with our supporter tribe. That's awesome. Everybody's here. All right. Thank you, Constance, for the congratulations. Dudes, can we talk about intermittent fasting? Mary, I love that you didn't just start out immediately on COVID. Yeah, we can talk about intermittent fasting. Before I do that, which is great, it's a great topic, let's quickly talk about, I just did a show with Dr. Mike, and he just released it this morning on his channel. It's a great conversation about COVID. I love Mike. It was really fun. So if you haven't checked that out, you can go to Dr. Mike's channel or go to my website, zdogmd.com, and it's the newest post on there. So that's a fun convo. If you're one of Dr. Mike's fans and you're here for the first time, welcome. This is how we do it. All right, intermittent fasting. So there are sort of 3 levers you can pull with diet, right? That you can use to try to lose weight or be healthier, whatever it is. And one of them is the lever of how much you eat, so caloric intake. Another lever is what you eat. So what type of nutrients are you taking in? Are you vegan? Are you keto? Are you carnivore? Are you Mediterranean? What classes of macronutrients are you favoring? What are you avoiding? What don't you eat? Do you not eat processed foods? Do you only eat processed foods? So that's lever number 2. But lever number 3 is when you eat. And by the way, these levers are stolen from my friend, Dr. Peter Attia, who speaks much more in depth and detailed about diet and exercise and physiology related to that. So that when you eat actually may become important because humans, and it's unclear, right? But humans may have evolved to be this kind of hunter-gatherer thing where you eat a whole bunch at once and then you're without food for a long time. And maybe that has some effects on your insulin sensitivity and your metabolism. Maybe it simply affects the total number of calories you eat and decreases them. Maybe it changes, you know, your overall hormonal situation and balance and your mood and so on. So intermittent fasting, let's take that off and just say we'll call it time-restricted eating. So restricting your caloric intake to certain times. So maybe a window of a few hours a day when you eat. Maybe it's, you know, you only eat breakfast. Maybe it's you only eat dinner. Maybe it's you only eat within this window. Whatever it is, that is an aspect of controlling kind of how and what you eat, and ultimately can lead to benefits if done correctly. Right? Now, you don't want to do things like time-restricted eating or intermittent fasting because there are extreme versions of intermittent fasting where you do like a 3-day water fast or a 7-day water fast where you're only drinking, you know, water and lemon juice or something, right? And some people like Dr. Jason Fung out of Canada say that, hey, that could be a really good way to treat, type 2 diabetes and other metabolic syndromes that he feels are characterized by overload of glucose in cells, and allowing that period of fasting to kind of reset that may be useful. But there is so much information about this online. I'll tell you my own personal experience with this is I do time-restricted feeding typically. So I usually only eat dinner, and dinner for me may start at like 3, and that window of eating may end at like 7 p.m., right? But I'm really just eating a meal there and then having like some berries or something later on in the evening or some kind of snack. And what I found is that's a good way to allow me to not have to think so much about caloric restriction, right? And then you combine that with exercise and not eating crap. So kind of cutting out a lot of processed food, trying not to eat out too much because you just can't control what you eat then. And that in itself can really help a lot. Matt McLeod of the Clan McLeod, thank you for the $10 super chat. I really appreciate it. I'm a Jason groupie, says Mary Hirsch. Yeah, Jason Fung, really smart guy. Mama Trees, who super chatted me. First time here, I never hear about the resistance to Delta with J&J shot. So the Johnson & Johnson shot is like the bastard stepchild of vaccines right now. It came out with, first of all, it was not first, which I think already set it back. Second of all, it's Johnson & Johnson, which is just the shittiest company in the history of companies, if we're being honest. Like, look, the reason you guys watch this show at all is because I'll just tell you what I think, even if it's going to get me completely canceled or murdered by Big Pharma, which is possible. Johnson & Johnson is a horrible company in terms of how they sort of deal with, PR, their quality control, the whole thing with talcum powder. Like, who even knows what that does? But it's not been good for them. So they had a lot of manufacturing problems at this plant that had to be shut down. They had to toss out a bunch of doses. The whole thing has been a mess. But the advantages of J&J is that it's a different type of strategy, right? So it's not an mRNA vector with lipid nanoparticles. So if you're allergic to the pegylated nippoparticle, see where my mind is. If you're allergic to the pegylated lipoparticles or whatever it is that some people get allergies to, or they don't like that kind of technology. They're like, this is gene therapy, which, by the way, any viral infection then is gene therapy because the virus is injecting RNA into you. Would you rather get gene therapy designed by nature that hates you? By the way, nature hates you. Just FYI, nature's whole job is to fuck with you. It's to try to destroy you so that you'll evolve into better forms that are more adapted to nature. Nature's been trying to kill us for billions of years. So I love natural things too, as much as the next guy. But if I'm like, I'll take my chances with natural infection, it's like, all right, then take your chances with shit that came out of a bat in some buttfuck part of China that came out of a bat and has been replicating in filthy humans all around. Take your chances with that, which that's fine. That's a decision you can make. Or you can take your chances that, a scientist and a series of scientists and teams of scientists designed this vaccine to actually take some of that yucky risk away, right? So I don't know. I'm kind of on the science side, but always with reservations, always looking at the data and going, is this a good idea? But that's kind of how I intuit it. So back to Johnson & Johnson, mRNA vaccines, but then Johnson & Johnson DNA type vaccine delivered by an adenovirus vector, a non-replicating human adenovirus. I think it's an Ad6. I'd have to double check that with J&J. And that adenovirus is unable to replicate in humans, but it's able to infect cells and inject its DNA that tells the cells to make the spike protein. So if you're making the spike protein, then you then form an immune response to it and so on. Well, it takes one dose of the J&J. And when I asked Dr. Paul Offit, who's the specialist and vaccinologist and all that, why is that? Why is it only one for that vaccine and takes two for the mRNA and two for what Novavax will come out eventually and, two for AstraZeneca? And he goes, I don't know. It just does. When you measure the response, it only takes one with some caveats. They're finishing a trial where they gave two spaced out to see if it improves the efficacy and durability of the immune response. So, and the tricky part with giving the second dose of Johnson & Johnson is that some people then form immunity after the first dose to the adenovirus vector. So when you give the second dose and it has the same adenovirus vector, could it be that you're going to get less of a response because you're going to attack that adenovirus before it can do a lot of injecting of its DNA? So these are valid questions that you can look at and you can measure antibody titers and all that. So J&J seems to be effective against severe disease with Delta. not as effective against first infection with Delta. And again, I haven't seen the latest numbers, but the feeling is, and this is interesting, San Francisco's Department of Health, I think, was saying, hey, we'll offer a mRNA booster to anyone who got the J&J shot. It's like, wow, that's a pretty strong statement that they don't feel comfortable that J&J is enough for Delta. I'm not sure about that. I think if your goal is prevent severe disease, hospitalization, death, then J&J ought to do just fine for most people, it seems. And it's a single dose, which is very appealing. The other thing about J&J is now when we get that data about the second dose, well, maybe then a booster with the same J&J shot would be a good idea. But I know that J&J people feel left out because, first of all, there are not that many of you. I think it's like 12 million, 14 million something. I mean, not that many. That's a shit ton of people, but it ain't the mRNA where it's like hundreds of millions of people. So, it really is a shame that that whole thing got to where it is, right? We'll talk more about that as we learn more about J&J and the new situations with boosters and all that. Thank you for the super chat, Andrea, and the kind words. Josh Cornelius super chatted me and says, intuit is anyone who doesn't think like me is a moron worthy of ridicule. Got it. Not very Zen-like of you, dog. Are you making fun of what I said earlier where I was like, you can either look at natural infection this way or you can look at vaccine? No, I said, that's how I think about it. So that's how I see the world. You are obviously going to see the world in a myriad different ways. And if you watch my show, you'll see that actually that's my whole point is like, hey, let's talk about what's actually bothering you about this stuff. I actually think after a lot of going through it and a lot of skepticism that the vaccines are a great idea, but not exclusively. If you've been naturally infected, it's like, hey, you got pretty good immunity, right? If you want a booster, great, you can get it with a vaccine. It'll just move us quicker to natural endemic disease like a common cold, like the 4 natural coronaviruses that infect us every year, and we call them colds. We can get to that point, but we can speed it up through a combination of natural immunity, which has already been there, and vaccination. Which actually, we were talking about intermittent fasting, exercising. I recently get access to Stanford's gym because my wife is still faculty at Stanford and I'm no longer faculty at Stanford. So I joined, I went there and I was like, oh, you have to wear a mask while you're exercising. That's their rule, right? With Delta and the breakthrough infections with vaccinated people and all that. And I'm like, I don't know. If I got a breakthrough infection with Delta, I've been doubly vaccinated with Moderna, it would probably just give me a booster of immunity and get us to endemicity faster. Now, there's a small chance I could get very sick. There's a small chance I could transmit it if I get enough viral load and I get sick enough. And so that's the downside of that, right? But they were saying you got to wear a mask. So I put a mask on in the gym. And I'm running on this elliptical machine and I'm trying to lift weights and I'm huffing and puffing. And the mask that I have is this, like normally I wear surgical masks, so I wore a surgical mask. Okay, within 5 minutes, my sweaty ass soaked right through the surgical mask and my tongue was poking out. Like when you're a kid and you take a napkin and you like wet it with the tip of your tongue and then your tongue pokes out and you're like, yeah, I was doing that with my fucking mask in the gym. And that was a little embarrassing because I was like, I'm not sure how effective this is as a barrier when it gets wet. And that makes you think about, well, what are kids doing with these masks and what's going on? Well, okay, some barrier is better than nothing probably, but you can see the nuance in this. Well, so then I went on Amazon and I was like, well, okay, I can't live like this. I just can't exercise like this. This is terrible. And I searched exercise mask and this. So this is like basically like almost like like lace underwear. Like I'm not even sure that it is occlusive in any way because I can see through it, And let me show you this thing. I can't even tell which side is up on this thing. Let's try it this way. All right. Okay, listen. Does my voice even sound a lot different? Probably not. God, wow, look at how, I just want to wear it like that. Hey guys. So I can breathe through this thing. I can talk through this thing. It's compliant with the gym. Does it do shit? I don't know. Maybe it it blocks large droplets. I'm sure it does. I'm sure it even blocks smaller droplets, but it doesn't block individual viral particles. They go right through the pores in this mask. I can see it, but I'm compliant with the rules. So there's a vast sort of little bit of silliness in what we're doing, right? That we have to recognize. I think if we don't call it out and say, hey, this is kind of silly, but we're going to do it anyways because, hey, if we can prevent a vulnerable person from getting sick by some luck of this thing blocking the one particle, then hey, fine if there's not a huge downside to it, which of course we haven't really studied. But then we have to just say that and go, okay, some of this is silly. We understand it's ridiculous, but let's try to do it because we're trying to be good, you know, overall. We're trying to basically change the inoculum. So for example, if I'm wearing this shitty mask, let me put it back on just to show you how shitty it is. Hell yeah. I feel like Bane from fucking Batman or something. I put this thing on. What's going to happen? Okay. I'm going to protect maybe some people from my droplets. So other people on elliptical machines next to me. And remember, you're breathing hard in a gym, right? I might protect myself slightly from a high inoculum of viral particles if they are floating on little droplets, because this might block that. And so that's going to change the dose I get. And according to, you know, Monica Gandhi and her theories about inoculum, the higher the inoculum, the more viral particles you inhale, the sicker you might get. And in fact, if you're vaccinated, the more likely you might be to break through that vaccine protection with a higher dose. I mean, all you got to do is give a high enough dose, you'll break through. So that being said, masks may give you the advantage of if you get sick, it's not that sick. You get your booster effect. We get the population to immunity faster with less death, hospitalization, damage. It's still true that a lot of the people, the vast majority of people in hospital in the United States are unvaccinated. And if you're unvaccinated at this point, it's hard to speculate, but you could say, well, you're also less likely to, you know, less likely to avoid contact, maybe less likely to mask, maybe you live in a place where there's less, you know, mask requirements and so on. So maybe there's some dynamic there, right? But my feeling is, look, we should just tell people, look, this is the deal. Like, you can do it or not, right? And I know, look, I know healthcare professionals, my colleagues are really fatigued and they're getting compassion fatigue taking care of unvaccinated patients. But it's like, well, then maybe we should spend more time talking to unvaccinated people at a level that isn't horribly, stupidly shamey. And listen, they have really good points, you know? Like, they have really good points about why they're nervous about the vaccine. I get so many messages from emails from people and they say, listen, hey, look, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. My kids are vaccinated, all right? But here are my concerns about this vaccine. What can you tell me about this? And I always try to answer. And the thing is, people just they have concerns, they have questions. They're not scientists. They can't look at the primary data. They really need somebody that doesn't suck. In other words, someone who's not just tisking them and has a Twitter avatar that looks like this. Let me show you the fucking Twitter avatars that make me want to die. They look like this. Okay. You've already lost anybody who's tired of being condescended to by some fucking coastal intellectual elite whose next tweet is how much they love Biden or how much they love Trump. You know what I mean? Like, if you're on Twitter or on social media as a doctor and you're trying to influence people to do the right thing, does it make sense to wear your dipshit political badge on your sleeve like that and be an asshole? Who are you going to sway with your political bullshit? Who are you going to convince? Are you going to convince, if you're a Democrat, are you going to convince a Republican to turn to your side by saying that shit on Twitter? No. Are you going to, you know, convince a Democrat to hold more conservative values if you're a Republican, if you're fucking doing that shit on Twitter and you're a you know, purported scientist? No. That's why we have this thing we call the alt middle in this tribe. It's not a political center. It's saying, hey, we transcend politics. This is a transpartisan thing where we're looking at all sides as having good intent and trying to find truth, respecting each other. And you know what? It actually works. It plays out in our supporter groups. It plays out. People are really nice. If they see a post that they're like another person is posting in the supporter group that they don't like, they either respond kindly with the counter perspective or they scroll on, dude. Instead of like, you're a fucking piece of shit, man. You didn't do red state piece of crap. It's terrible and awesome. How often are children supposed to change their mask in an 8-hour period, Sabong? Who knows? That's the thing. Has anyone studied this? That's the point. Anyone who tells you we know everything about masks on either side, they don't work, they do work, is lying to you. They're straight up lying to you. They don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody knows what the effect of masking is really on kids. I'll say my intuition on it is that it probably cuts down the inoculum and the overall level of infectivity among kids, which is already relatively low because they're kids. This is not influenza, but so I think it's probably like, I'm happy that my kid's school mandates it. I just feel a little more comfortable because my 10-year-old cannot be vaccinated and I just don't want her to get sick. I don't think she's going to end up with MIS-C. I don't think she's going to end up in the hospital because I know how to parse risk. I'm not crazy. I'm more worried about her crossing the street. But the mask will reduce overall inoculum probably. But do we know how often she's supposed to change them? Do we know what type of mask she's supposed to wear? And the people will say, well, based on the mechanistic studies. Okay, if we believed everything mechanistic studies told us, we'd have cures for cancer. Because according to the mechanistic studies, they show this. That's like these new studies that everybody's citing, like about viral affinity and immune escape with new Lambda variant and this and that. Oh, we think it escapes immunity because of this study in silico. What did I just say? In silico, not in vitro, which is in cell cultures, and that's already shit. Not in vivo, which is in real humans or in animals. In silico. In computer models, and then it will make the news. It'll show up in your Facebook feed. You know, you're just like, what the fuck? Richard Short, it's Sunday. I'm sorry I'm cursing so much. Huh? Richard Short, how can you tell if you're still infectious since the PCR test will be positive for 3 months after? It won't necessarily be positive for 3 months after. Actually, in fact, it won't. And I interviewed Dave Persing from Cepheid. They're like the major molecular testing company during the pandemic before as well. And we had a conversation about that. That interview is coming out very shortly, so stay tuned. But bottom line is, how can you tell infectivity? Usually, if you are symptomatically sick and you test positive, you can just wait until, the CDC has guidelines on how many days past your last symptoms. And usually that's good. You don't have to keep retesting. Now, what's interesting is the difference between the PCR testing and the antigen testing. So antigen is testing for, certain antigens. It's often salivary test. It can be a Nere's test too. But those antigen tests are less sensitive unless your viral load is very high, which means they turn positive when you're most infectious. Isn't that useful for regular screening, right? So if you're screening people for work or for whatever, they're high risk, screen them with an antigen test, because if they're negative on the antigen test, but they're still infected, you don't care because they're unlikely to infect other people, right? And remember, this is a disease that's over-dispersed, meaning it's usually super spreaders who happen to be high viral loads and a certain other set of characteristics we don't understand. Now, with Delta, a lot more people seem to be super spreaders because of the high replicatability of this virus in the nasopharynx in the passages. Compared to other previous variants. Let's see. Alex Acosta, thank you so much for the super chat. I know people will keep moving the goalpost even after FDA approval Monday, but at what point do we start importing Synovac for the anti-vaxxers? Well, if you want a relatively ineffective vaccine to really prove the anti-vaxxers right, then go ahead and give them Synovac. I actually don't know enough about Synovac to really say that. But look, we have really good vaccines, right? We have 3 really good vaccines in the U.S., soon hopefully 4 with Novavax. There's AstraZeneca in other parts of the world. I don't think we need to look really much farther than what we have. Let's see. Josh Cornelius, if you're asking us to do things that are silly, why should anyone take you seriously on anything else, such as vaccines? And that's exactly the point. The experts are all over the place, like Fauci. Dude, I don't disagree with you. I mean, during the whole pandemic, I've been like, this is dumb. Why are we saying this? Why are we saying this? This is dumb. I've said some dumb shit. And then I've regretted it. And then I've come out and said, hey, I shouldn't have said that dumb shit. So could you imagine if Fauci came out and was like, you know what? We never should have said that dumb shit about that. That was us. Here's what we were trying to do. We were trying to get people not to, used too many masks early on because there wasn't good data that it helped. And we were really worried about hospital employees not having enough PPE. So I'm really sorry we did that. We tried to do the best we could for public health, but we fucked it up. We'll try to do better in the future. Hold me accountable, send me an email, whatever. Okay. Trust level, just ratcheted up. Instead, it's like, no, they don't do that. And who knows who they're, it's like, in the end, it comes to, it's something like this. You know how, PR people, marketing people, they're really annoying. I've had to work with these folks. Some of them are wonderful, but some of them are just like, you're just like, oh my God, you just don't get it at all. Like you're going by some playbook that really is outdated in the current world where people's BS detector is through the roof. I'm not going to, why would I fucking listen to this bullshit? This is horseshit, right? They're the kind of people advising like CDC and Fauci and these guys. Like the whole playbook of public health since HIV has been harm reduction. You should try to reduce harm. So why are we not doing that? You don't reduce harm by shaming people. You give people information and you let them make decisions. Same with vaccines. I don't think mandates are gonna really condition us well, right? A country that's kind of like founded on the idea of, hey, give us some liberty to make decisions, especially when it comes to something that's injected into us. I totally get that, man. Like I'm super sympathetic to that. So how do you communicate with people where they actually will be influenced by something you're able to say? Well, first of all, you have to be honest. Second of all, you have to admit when you fucked up. Third of all, you have to recognize where they're coming from and honor it. Be like, dude, I totally get that. Right? If you don't totally get it, you can say, look, I have trouble understanding that perspective because here's my perspective where I see it from, what I see in the hospital, what's going on. Totally get it, right? But at least you're honest. Authenticity is something we've totally lost. Totally lost. Now, Peyton Frank asks, if and when children ages 0 to 11 is authorized to get the vaccine, in your professional opinion, should they? Oh, my God. So, okay. Kids under 11. All right. I'll tell you what. My 10-year-old, if the vaccine gets approved, I probably get it for her, right? Because I think she actually wants it. Her bigger sister, who's 13, got it. We are in an area where like vaccine passports are annoyingly prevalent in the Bay Area. So from a practical standpoint, I think it's pretty low risk for kids, although there is that risk of myocarditis, mostly in boys. And when she's gotten sick with even influenza or a flu-like syndrome in the past, she often gets very high fevers, becomes delirious, and it becomes scary for us as parents. Even though we know she's okay, we're two physician parents. We get scared seeing her delirious with fever, and we treat it and she gets better. But that's enough for us to go, well, we would rather not roll the dice with natural COVID with her. We would get her vaccinated, assuming it's FDA, EUA approved, emergency use authorization. But do you see how I made that decision? It wasn't a black and white decision. Oh yeah, vaccine for kids? Sure, do it. I had to think through. First of all, how do I feel about it? Second of all, what's the science on it? Third of all, what's the risk benefit? Fourth of all, what does she think about it? Because you know what? We should actually at least listen to our kids, even if we're going to ignore them. Have them feel like they've been heard, and then you make a decision. So that's how you'd make a decision. And I think there's a lot of unknowns, but I think that overall, once I see the data from the trials on kids, I can make a more educated decision and be able to say what I think. Now, I have pediatrician friends who are like, absolutely, I wouldn't even wait. I'd do it right now. Well, why would they say that? Because they're the ones treating the sickest kids who break through, who are in the ICU, who get, MIS-C, this multisystem inflammatory syndrome of children, and they would do anything they can to prevent that. Paul Offit, who's been on my show, says part of the reason he's so passionate about vaccines is he's seen preventable illnesses of children kill kids and make them very sick in hospital. So they have a proximity bias to seeing the sickest of the sick, even though statistically that might be relatively rare. So what you value, what your bias is, actually will determine what your decision is and what you actually advocate. Can we accept that? Can we recognize that? Can we say that we're human beings, imperfect, frail human beings in an imperfect world that's trying to kill us? and we're doing the best we can. So let's be honest about it. Roberto Medina says, can docs finish one residency, family medicine, do 2 fellowships, general medicine, EM, work as an attending, then get accepted into a second residency, emergency medicine? I've never heard of that particular scenario, but Roberto, the best that I can say is anything's possible. I wonder if you're asking for a friend. So there's a, look, I'll say this. Don't people who are in medical training, it's very seductive to stay in medical training for the rest of your life. It's much better to try to feel intuitively really where you should be, go and do it, find your niche, and never give up finding the niche. If that involves more training, great. But honestly, if you're training to avoid something like the real world or going into practice or realizing that medicine wasn't the right answer for you, some people that happens, but maybe you should take what you've gotten and go in a different direction with it. So you really have to probe yourself. That sounded creepy. You really have to introspect and know thyself very well, which means you have to listen to what your little authentic voice is saying. Right? It's usually not wrong before you do 20 residencies, trying to find who it is you are because you're in denial of who you are. You're not a doctor. Or you're not a family medicine doc. You were always an ER doc. Okay, then go do that. That's fine. Let's see. Boy, there's a lot of super chats here. I think I'm going to focus on them for now because you guys are kindly supporting our show. Luke Hammond, can you give your opinion on long COVID? Are most people recovering and how long is it taking? So nobody knows. Long COVID feels a lot like chronic fatigue syndrome, which is some people felt might have some influence of like an Epstein-Barr virus reactivation. That's the virus that causes mono, which I've had, which many people have had. Nobody knows. So there's all kinds of speculation. Oh, should we be treating with, antivirals for Epstein-Barr to prevent long COVID? Will vaccination prevent long COVID? Or can you get long COVID if you've been mildly infected? It seems that long COVID symptoms seem to correlate with severity of disease. Not always, but they seem to. So how sick you were in the beginning of your infection. And then the rates of length of symptoms really vary. And I think some of it is honestly bullshit post-viral stuff that everybody gets with every virus. But you add on the psychological overlay of this is a bat coronavirus from God knows where. And all we do is see about panic on the news. And that adds a psychological overlay to symptoms you would normally, I've gotten viral syndromes where I've been coughing for 2 months intermittently and feeling shitty and having like stitch in your side and all that. I probably had a PE, who knows. But I never catastrophized about it because it was just a virus. But with COVID, the psychology is different. Okay, so there's a subset of people that are like that. Then there's the long haul COVID people that are really, there's something going on, right? The first step is to acknowledge that they're having that, right? To witness their suffering and go, dude, that sucks. So, and then you have to take it seriously and try to study it. And I think there are people doing this, but it is a very difficult thing to study. It really is. And it's even hard to even pin down what the constellation of symptoms is. It seems brain fog is one of the bigger ones. So people talk a lot about brain fog, which becomes interesting because, the coronavirus can have these sort of neurological effects. So it's something we need to keep looking at very carefully. One question that people ask me is, I have long COVID. Is it okay to get vaccinated? Well, anecdotally, it seems people seem to feel better after vaccination. Is that a psychological placebo effect, or is there some immune modulation that goes on that helps symptoms of long COVID with vaccination? Talk to your doc. Oh, great, man. We got 1,200 people watching live. By the way, I wanted to again say thank you for 400,000 subscribers. It only took us 11 years on YouTube. Thanks to Dr. Mike did a show with me and released it this morning, and hopefully we're getting some of Dr. Mike's fans over here. Welcome. Mike and I are homies from 2017 when we did a show together in New York live on my channel. It's really remarkable to see YouTube grow kind of into this thing for us, which is lovely because Facebook has been where we've really had the juice with like 2.5 million subscribers there. But YouTube has always been my favorite in terms of quality and engagement and that kind of thing. So it's nice to just have all of you guys here. Where are we at? Hey, Ball Boys, how are you? Ball Boys is a supporter. You can support us on YouTube, Locals, Facebook. All you got to do is go to zdogmd.com/supporters and read about each platform, decide which one you want to be in the supporter tribe. It's like $5 a month and up, depending on what you want to support at. And you then become part of these live conversations like this, like we're having. We do this like every other night with supporters. But we have even more fun because we do like karaoke and shit. It's crazy. It's off the rails. What up, Gabo? All right, let's see here. Christine Live, thank you for the generous super chat. Can you respond to the study showing that flu and pneumonia shots offer some protection against severe COVID? So I haven't looked at those studies, but I'd say this. It makes sense because there is a jazzing up of the ancillary innate immune system with those vaccinations. Influenza, pneumococcal vaccination, interferons get jazzed up, the innate immune system gets jazzed up. And one way to think about that is this concept of viral interference. So, and then that's why they were even saying like MMR vaccination seems to reduce risk of coronavirus infection. Those measles, mumps, rubella. It's like, why? Probably because of this innate immune system jazzing. Of course, we don't know for sure. You think of viral interference, like where did flu go in the last couple of years, right? Well, partially it's because we shut down schools, we shut down travel, we masked up, we distanced, we washed hands. The schools were the big thing because schools are big incubators of influenza, unlike COVID. And so the other part of that, though, is something called viral interference, which is where you get infected with the dominant virus that's circulating, which happens to be coronavirus, and your innate immune system, there's two parts of the immune system to simplify it, right? There's your adaptive immune system, which is, we talk about antibodies that are specific to a particular pathogen, a particular target, T cells that are specific to a particular target. And then there's the innate immune system, which are things like mucosal immunity, interferons, these non-specific sort of inflammatory immune modulators that protect you against a lot of different pathogens. And so let's say you get infected with COVID or COVID circulating, it jazzes up your interferons. Well, influenza doesn't have a chance. You're already kind of protected against it. You combine that with a background of influenza vaccination and flu goes away, along with closing schools and all the other stuff. Well, so the same thing might be going on with flu and pneumonia shots offering some protection. Am I getting my flu shot this year? Oh, hell yeah. I do it every year. Pneumococcal vaccination is more for older people, so I don't get to get that because my risk of having pneumococcal pneumonia at my age with a normal immune system and I have a spleen, I don't need a pneumovax, right? So you got to look at it that way too. Like, is it indicated? Let's see. Where are we at? Please talk. So Omar Musa says, please talk about Barnstable mass study. Vaccines did nothing to prevent infection, viral load, or hospitalization. 30% of LA infections in fully vaxxed. Good. Great. Let's talk about that. Okay. That's horseshit. So the Massachusetts thing was mostly vaccinated people in very tight quarters, sharing all kinds of space. We already know, and we knew this from the original trials, but it's changed with Delta. And I did a show about this. The vaccine doesn't necessarily prevent all infections. It does reduce the risk of infection by about 5 to 10 times. So you're less likely to get infected in the first place, but you can still get infected because remember, this is a mucosal virus, respiratory virus, but antibodies live in the blood, right? Unless you have nasal vaccine and you're making IgA antibodies in the mucosa. So you can still get infected. Once you're infected, probably a lot of people get a very mild syndrome and aren't very infectious. But the ones that do go on, the ones that you're testing, the ones tested in the Barnstable thing, are the kind of super spreaders of the group. So they're the ones who get more viral load. And sure, they're going to be, because infectivity is directly related to your viral load. So how much virus you're replicating is how infectious you are. So are you going to infect other people? Sure, if you have a high viral load, whether you're vaccinated or not. Are you going to infect other vaccinated people? You can, right? If you're in their face. And you have enough viral load and you happen to be the super spreader type. So yeah, vaccinated people can get infected. The vast majority of them don't get very sick, meaning hospitalized sick, death sick, ventilator sick. And that's why we still see the majority of the patients in hospital, they're clogging up the drain, are the unvaccinated people. But as more people, like I think you brought up Israel or somewhere else, as more people get vaccinated, the only people left to infect are vaccinated people. So yeah, they're the ones getting infected preferentially because there's not that many unvaccinated people. You see it in Iceland too, but look at the hospitals. They are much, much, much less full than they would be if there were also a ton. And in fact, look at Iceland. It's a great case example. Iceland has like 70% vax rate, right? Really good for adults. And then 5% of them are kids that can't be vaccinated. But the people in hospital, right? And they're not like overflowing, but they don't have that much hospital capacity to begin with. It's just a very small country. 40% of them are unvaccinated. So they're disproportionately in hospital. The vaccinated people that are in hospital are typically older people or people with immune compromise, or the Venn diagram of that, which are really elderly people are by nature immune compromised. So that's why you're going to see them potentially break through, get severe disease. And that's why probably CDC said, hey, you may want to mask up if you're in a high Delta area, even if you're vaccinated. That was the point, right? It was based on this data. And that's new because with Alpha, remember in the spring, I'm like, this shit's over. Woo! Psh, popping the champagne. If you're vaccinated, yay. If you're not vaccinated, fuck off. That's cool. You make your choices. No worries. You can't hurt me. Well, that may not be true in the setting of Delta. You can't hurt me with severe disease, but you can get me infected, and then I can get other people infected, including people who can't be vaccinated, like young kids. But of course, most young kids do just fine. So again, there's nuance even in that, right? But the point is, the vaccine's 5 to 10. Okay, listen to this: 5 to 10-fold. This is like people who think the vaccines aren't working have looked at this. There was an article in Intelligencer magazine that I talked about in my show on breakthrough infections. They cite at the low end a 5 to 10-fold reduction in infection with vaccination in the setting of Delta, and a 17 to 70-fold reduction in severe disease hospitalization with Delta with vaccination. Okay, that's a big fucking deal. End of story, full stop. Is it perfect? No, because Delta sucks, but it's pretty damn good. So the point is, I still think you should really get vaccinated. But I understand why you're resistant. I do. I fully understand it. But I think you should fully get vaccinated and just stop looking at Facebook and BitChute and Rumble to get your information. Because I get wanting a heterodox viewpoint, but come on, dude. You're going to cherry pick some like pathologist out of buttfuck nowhere who's saying that, microclotting is happening in vaccinated patients. Like, what? You don't think we would have seen that? Like, you don't think doctors are looking for this shit? Doctors are the biggest skeptics of this shit. They're looking for it in their patients, and we're not seeing it. Great comments, by the way. Andrew Dunbar, hey, what pretentious nerd came up with the phrase in silico for a computer situation? Also, as a matter of accuracy, it should be in silicio. Okay, first of all, who's the nerd now, since you just clarified that it should be in silicio? No, I hear you, brother. I just read it today in a paper. I was like, in silico? No. Rafiq Jennings, not a Fauci fan. I think Dr. Mike is a shill, but glad he interviewed you. I respect you, but my ears hurt from Mo screeching in the NCLEX ad before the live stream. I see. We'll listen to this later. Oh, you got an ad in the live stream? Yeah. I turn the ads on for the public, not for supporters. Supporters who are watching this get ads, but for my private supporter shows, there's no ads. Why do I turn ads on? Because I'm a capitalist. Like, if I'm going to do this every single day, give it my heart and soul, it's nice to generate revenue that supports my kids' college fund and pays the bills. And then my supporter tribe pays all the overhead and pays for my team. And am I going to get rich and all that doing this? Probably not, but it's enough. It's enough for me. And I found that, when I was younger, I used to want, crave fame, fortune, all those things. I'm honest with you. Like, I thought I was destined for greatness when I was young. I was like, I just knew it in my heart. I'm like, one day I'm going to be this famous person who's going to be rich and people are going to like. And where does that come from, ultimately? It comes from, if you introspect, it comes from a deep sense of unworthiness, never feeling good enough, right? So you're looking, craving, seeking, trying to find something. And so, okay, well, the early days of me doing YouTube, it was all about like, I'm going to make this character that people are going to want to watch, right? This is Z-Dog MD with the 2 G's, man. He's a thug, yo. And I'll just, appropriate whatever and I'll make it my own and I'll fucking do it. How'd that work out? Not great. It's not really me. It's an aspect of me, right? It's a fringe character within me. But what I found later is, I just got to be me. And you know what? If people don't like it, that's cool. But there are enough people that feel as I do that we should have better conversations, more in-depth, more nuanced, more authentic. And they're willing to see me for who I am without hating me, but understanding that I'm a flawed character, right? So part of that flaw is, I have to support my family, which means I let ads on the video, right? Now, when you say Dr. Mike is a shill, that's a real serious character assessment that, it's kind of like Mike is doing great work. He's doing fabulous work. He's educating muggles, non-medical people, about stuff that they don't know about. I don't do that. I'm really more aimed at like healthcare professionals and stuff. And if non-medical people are there, that's great. They can watch and learn something, but really that's not the goal, right? It's more like the tribe of medicine. But he is a young guy. He's got to pay off his student loans. He's got to do his thing. And he's doing it in a way that's not hurting anybody. I think that's great. And he uses that then to reach people. I think it's great. So I understand the accusation of shill against everybody. I get accused of being a shill all the time by people who have no idea what I do. I do a lot. The way I used to make money is I used to do talks a lot. And and I would charge a lot of money because I put on a hell of a show and it has meaning. If you've seen my live talks in person, you kind of know what I'm talking about. It's a big thing. And there's some songs, but it's really about building Health 3.0 and finding our own authentic place in the world and so on, and do them in person and virtual. And that's great. But I was traveling all around the world and it was getting exhausting. And so I decided to do much less of those. I just charge a shit ton of money to do them now. And so I do very few, which feels good to me because you can get out of what I'm saying on any given show a lot of what I'm going to say live. It would be tailored for you and your audience. But I'd rather do this, So anyways, that's a long way of saying I appreciate your observations and this is what I think. John the bartender, that sounds like a biblical character. Like you're going to serve Jesus his first shot at age 21. John the bartender, New Orleans here. I love it already. Why don't vaccinated patrons need a negative test to go to restaurants, bars, gyms, and NFL Saints games? I'll tell you, because they're trying to encourage people to get vaccinated and they figure if you can just show a vaccine passport, then you don't have to go through all that. It's an incentive. Does it make any scientific sense? Well, like I said, 5 to 10-fold reduction in infection in vaccinated people, but that's still not zero. So no, it doesn't make perfect scientific sense at all, but you understand the social and political sense that it makes to the people making the policy. But as soon as you can see that clearly, you can make a decision about how you feel about it, right? Be honest, right? Jameson Dean, I was skeptical of the vaccine even though I was vaccinated because I saw it as a ransom payment for my freedom. You were the first person to argue for the vaccines in good faith. Thank you. Oh my God, I want to triple down on I want to put a pin in what you said. Ransom on our freedom. Yes, that's what it feels like. That's what masks feel like. That's what lockdowns are. Look, I've said this. I'm kind of a libertarian, meaning I'm really liberal on something, kind of conservative on other things, but really more than anything, I'm like, leave my ass alone. Live and let live, as long as you're not hurting other people. Now, with this stuff, it becomes so nuanced. Are you hurting other people with your decisions? And some people would say yes, some people would say no, So all that said, what you just said is the reason why people email me with the preface. They say, listen, dude, you're the only person I trust. I'm not into this vaccine. Tell me why I should be into this vaccine or if I'm missing something. And when I reply, I'm honest. I go, fucking, I hate this vaccine as much as anyone. I hate having to do anything. I hate the fact that Big Pharma is getting paid for this. I hate the fact that, we always want a quick solution to something that really ought to involve this. Get fucking fit, eat better, stop being fat pieces of shit. All of us collectively as a society encouraging shitty diets that, destroy the planet. And I'm not a vegan or anything, but just like eat less shit. And COVID would be much safer. There'd be much less death from COVID. So all that I say, and then I say, but here's the thing, we're in this situation now. So here's why I think I got my family vaccinated. This is why I think it'd probably be good for you, but talk to your doctor. And I'll tell you what, you've been previously infected, say. There's no decision you make that's wrong. You get vaccinated, great. You got a booster. You don't get vaccinated, your chances of dying from COVID are quite low anyways, because you've gotten a single exposure to natural COVID. So I will tell people, no decision you make is wrong. So first of all, if you go and get COVID, don't feel like shit about it. You did the best you could with the data you had. Now, with some people, I do tell them, I'm quite firm, right? I say, okay, you're 75. The stuff you're emailing me is all misinformation. It's not about freedom or a moral palate for you. It's about believing misinformation. Let me quickly tell you why that's wrong and why you better get vaccinated because you're at high risk. That's what I think. Go talk to your doctor. So I do that. And then there's these sort of really interesting nuanced situations where it's like a pregnant woman who's 34 weeks pregnant and she's going to deliver in, 4 weeks. And she's like, okay, I haven't had COVID. I'm nervous about getting vaccinated because if anything happened to my baby, I would pin it on the vaccine and I would feel terrible for the rest of my life. It's only 4 more weeks and then I will get vaccinated because I'm comfortable with breastfeeding and vaccine, but I'm just nervous about doing this thing in the setting of pregnancy. And the first thing I say is, holy shit, you're a great mom. You haven't even given birth and you're a great mom because you care so much about this unborn child already. You're trying to do the best you can. And here's what I think. And I tell her again, I say, I don't think there's a wrong decision, but I'll say this. And if this were my wife and we were talking about it, COVID complications in your age group are low unless you're pregnant. Premature delivery, maternal complications like ventilation, death are much higher if you get COVID infected now. If this were early spring, I would have said, don't worry about it. There's not much going on. But now you're in a Delta mess. So either you can kind of keep to yourself for the next 4 weeks and avoid getting infected, or you can just go get the vaccine. And the major medical societies that take care of women and the CDC have all looked at this data, as have I, and we're pretty strongly convinced that there is no excess rate of fetal or maternal harm for women in pregnancy with the mRNA vaccines. So that's the best I can tell you. Any decision you make based on what I've just given you and what you know and what you feel is probably the right decision for you. That's what I say. So that's like the scale of like, hey, I'm quite firm, I'm nuanced, and I'm like, meh, whatever you do is fine. So that's kind of how I think about it. Where are we here? I saw an interesting comment about cursing, but it disappeared. Hold on, because I really like comments about my cursing. Tony Montana, beyond anger, I'm guessing the cursing stems from some sort of bitterness. Are you talking about me? Are you fucking talking about me? Okay, so this is one of my triggers. People who get angry about my cursing. You can fuck off. So go somewhere else. This is the worst kind of virtue signaling where you come on someone's page and you're like, you curse too much. You're a horrible, you must be bitter or stupid because dumb people curse. And then I'll share the link that says that cursing is actually is associated with higher intelligence. It's associated with better pain control in people. It's associated with a kind of a social lubricant. It's associated with also honesty and authenticity. So if you want to come here and talk shit about my cursing, you can fuck yourself in every fucking hole you have. How's that for authenticity? How's that for making me feel better? I feel better already. Bitterness. Fuck off. Go somewhere else. Rob Freeman, who's a supporter, doctors curse a lot. Yeah, you don't fucking come to the doctor's lounge and hear us talk, right? That's why when a doctor, every now and again, a doctor will be like, I can't share your videos because you curse too much. And I'm like, fuck, dude, fucking A, dude. Give me a break. I curse too much. Come on, dude. Let's go have a beer. Let's hear who's cursing. Aaron Bally says, I love it when you swear. Look, look, it is. It's tea kettling, Laura Thurman. It's like Rachel Zoffness, Dr. Zoffness said on my show when we talked about chronic pain. Tea kettling is a way to blow off steam so that you don't take it out in a malproductive or passive-aggressive way. I take it out verbally into the ether by cursing, right? Stop cursing. And this is another thing. This is one of the great thing about going live just to YouTube in a way where I don't really care if you guys share the video. It's wonderful if you do. We've got 1,400 people watching live. Look, you guys are going to go out and influence people, whether you share my video or not. So if I can curse all I want and be me, if I can be me with you, even if you can't share the video because you're worried about Aunt Marge having a coronary, that I said the F word. And I actually do get that. I get the aversion to cursing for some people. It is a moral palate thing, and I do respect that. But it also means that you can't tell me what to do. Like, it's a libertarian thing. Like, I can curse and you don't have to watch. No one's forcing you to watch, right? But anyways, I forget what I was talking about. Forex Brizio. If you support vaccine passports, you have no clue about the background of these and who is supporting them and their intention. It's the camel's nose under the tent. I have no fucking idea what you just said. Let's see. You can also get a religious exemption from the jabs. You know, what's interesting is I'm trying to think of a religion that says you shouldn't get vaccinated. Name a few that it's part of the dogma of the religion. You know, you teach me about this because it just is not a common thing. Rich Adams, you're the best. You have such healing powers with just your smile. Thank you. Oh, that's so kind. After I just went off on an F-bomb related crusade. So, hey, one thing I will say this. How can I say this properly? It really behooves us to develop some type of introspective practice. You can call it a spiritual practice. You can call it prayer. You can call it meditation. You can call it sitting and thinking, whatever it is. But introspecting, really feeling into intuitively what's going on inside. And it allows you to know yourself better. It allows you to be less reactive. It allows you to also be authentically reactive. Like, you can rant and rave, but from a place of pure authenticity instead of a place of reactivity. And you become response able. So you're able to have your unconscious stuff bubble up, and instead of just getting lost in it, able to look at it and go, oh, that's that. Oh, yeah, I got triggered. All right, take a breath, take a space. What's a wiser course of action that's going to generate more love in the world? All right, maybe this. Yeah. So that I've been working on that with myself. It's a constant journey, a constant struggle. This morning I meditated for an hour listening to Adya Shanti talking about the power of redemptive love. Redemptive love, in his description, is tapping into that part of eternal presence that's always there, from which all of reality seems to come up in the present moment. And understanding that redemptive love is a kind of connection to what is that redeems the sorrows of life. So whatever you think is wrong, whatever you're resisting, whatever you're pushing against, whatever you hate, whatever's really hurting you, redemptive love is understanding that the ground of your being, the core of your being, is this beautiful acceptance of what is, and it redeems. It's a kind of love that redeems the sorrows of the world. Meditate on that for an hour and then go through your day and watch how your day changes. Watch how your perception changes. But also watch the subtleties of it, because sometimes the ego mind gets very threatened by that kind of surrender to what is and comes back with a vengeance. Oh, you don't know. This guy doesn't know what he's fucking talking about. Shut it. Don't, this fucking bald guy thinks he's a guru. Happens to me. He'll come back and I'll be a little more of a dick for a while until I recognize, become responsible, continue to meditate. All right. Anyways, I digress. Laura Thurman, Christianity is about redemptive love as well. It is. And the true Christianity, because true Christianity is about Jesus as an awakened being. The divinity and the humanity of Jesus in one thing, one being, right? It's beautiful. And I'm agnostic. Twitter Chris, dude, wish there was a doc like you here. Your mentality is so needed. They're all over. Seriously. They just, look, being kind of this, trying to be alt middle and listen to all sides and being, but still taking a stand, that's not something that you can be born with. You have to learn how to do that through practice, through conditioning, through training, through social signals, through mentorship, all of that. I mean, I tell you, it took me, I said I started this in 2010 on YouTube, right? Now we just reached 400,000 subscribers. How many years did it take me to finally really connect with that and learn that? And the pandemic accelerated that. And I'm still working on that. And I still fuck up. So doctors, it ought to be part of our training, this sort of treat our patients with redemptive love, redeeming the sorrows of the world by witnessing where they are at, right? Where they are at. I love it. Thanks for all the thumbs up, Renee. Man, you guys on the Super Chat are blowing my mind with the amount you've donated so far. Peyton Frank, are there studies on any reactions between flu vaccine and any COVID vaccine? Sorry, I was just checking to make sure my recording card didn't run out of time. I don't know of trials looking at that interaction. I'll say this. I'm not sure we would expect a very strong interaction, but I probably would not do them like back to back or in the same sitting myself. Now, again, I have no data to support this, but you kind of want to tease out, if you get a reaction to one of them, which vaccine gave you the reaction, since we're still trying to get good data. Let me rephrase that because you're going to misinterpret that. We're trying to get as much data, pure data on the vaccines for COVID as we can. If you start taking a flu vaccine the next day or in the same day, we're not going to get clean data on what's the COVID vaccine effect and what's the flu vaccine effect. So that's my only caveat to that. It's a very good question. Timothy Courtemanche, thanks for the super chat. My son's mother-in-law is an anti-vax homeopathy nut, and she's convinced my daughter-in-law that it's too dangerous for our granddaughter to be around my wife because my wife got vaccinated. Okay. All right. So, okay. I get people who are into homeopathy and alternative medicine stuff. I get it. It very intuitively feels correct. And there is a strong mind-body connection. There's a strong placebo connection. Very powerful. Homeopathy is basically placebo, and it's very powerful, right? So I don't hate on it in the sense that I'm like, hey, if it works for you, great. But if it does this, so it's associated with a barrel of magical thinking that can harm you. Part of that magical thinking is that somehow vaccinated people are harmful to unvaccinated people. Now, it's very rare that I'm this strident about something. That is complete, abject horseshit. There's zero evidence for it. There's zero even valid theory for why that would be. And I've done videos on this vaccine shedding. You can look at on my website, zdogmd.com, to look at that. It's garbage, and it's something that I think we need to aggressively talk about. No, it just doesn't happen. Now, it's a fringe view, but still, it's going to cost people lives, because if elders are not, and it's going to tear families apart because they're like, oh, you're vaccinated, you can't come next to my unvaccinated child because you're going to make them sterile or have a miscarriage. God, and the people who spread this stuff, they ought to be held accountable in the sense that their reputation should be ruined. It really should. It should be a public social pressure to not be that person. Like the Sherry Tenpennies who make money on this, Joseph Mercola who makes money on peddling this garbage, and anti-vaccine stuff. It's really criminal. Dr. Non-Skills, thank you for the super chat. Love your channel. Just noticed I was not subscribed. Nice. Hopefully you did sub. Thanks for the super chat. From my personal and gaming channel. Nice. Been watching from your channel from my wife's account. Lots of favorite songs. Thank you for what you do. Always fun to watch. I love you. Thank you for being with me. That's really lovely, brother. You basically just supported the show and threw me kind words, and everyone needs to go check out your channel. All right. I'm gonna do you the return service. That's great. Rude 310. I think I overdid it on Tylenol during COVID. My ALT number was 78. Is that high? Can I do anything to help lower that besides not taking Tylenol? Yeah, so this is a great question. This is not individual medical advice, by the way. I don't do that. We're going to talk in broad platitudes about this. That's a very small elevation in a liver-specific enzyme, ALT. I'd be curious to see your other liver tests, like what was your alkaline phosphatase, what was your AST, what was your bilirubin, and see what was going on there to get a bigger picture of what your liver's doing. Mild ALT elevations like this is probably less than twice normal, depending on the lab. That can be caused by COVID itself, the infection itself, or it could be caused by a million other things, but it could also be caused by too much Tylenol. But often if you're taking that much Tylenol, Tylenol is very harmful in high doses, and it can accumulate if you really overdo it. You can overwhelm liver, you end up with real problems. But that often looks worse than this. You use a nomogram to see, do you have Tylenol toxicity? What I would say is, you can even, Tylenol can still even be taken with mild liver dysfunction. You just lower the total dose, like 2 grams a day instead of, 4 grams or whatever the current dose is. And again, don't quote me on this because it's been a minute since I've looked at the dosing nomogram for Tylenol. So all that being said, I think the simplest thing is, avoid alcohol. Probably if you don't need Tylenol, you can avoid it. You can always take ibuprofen if you tolerate that. And recheck it when your doctor tells you to recheck it to make sure it's not trending in the wrong direction. That's really it. Let's go back here. Matt McLeod, thanks again for the super chat. Retail Alchemist, great name, with the super chat. At this point, I'm getting a lot of those vaccine hesitant patients coming in resentfully for shots. Thanks for the empathic talking points I can use. Oh my gosh, dude. Okay, I imagine you're a pharmacist. They're coming in for the shot. They're bummed. They're mad. They feel forced and compelled and coerced. Acknowledge what they're feeling. Acknowledge it. I would be the first thing I'd say. I'd go, dude, I know, man, it sucks to be forced to get a needle stabbed in you with something that you didn't want. I totally get that, man. This is an unusual and extraordinary time, and we're so divided. This may be something that actually we can do collectively to bring us together, but it still sucks. I get it. But you know what? I'll say this. I got vaccinated. My family got vaccinated. It's just because I think these things really work. But I wish it wouldn't be associated with the political shaming and all the other stuff that makes us feel terrible, the mandates. I really wish, something like that. You just say it as you're giving the injection. It remodulates. People feel heard, right? Because these are good people. They really are. I don't understand the villainization of people who are trying to behave rationally. They just, maybe they're doing it in a way you disagree with. Mindy Meeks. Hey Z, I'm immunocompromised and looking at getting COVID booster. I got JNJ, but my room says I can get any version. What say you? So I don't know what CDC's protocol is in this, but I don't care. I would just get one of the mRNA ones, because you'll get a spike protein booster and it'll work fine. So that's what I would say. Now, again, I'm sure CDC will have some policy, and they're finishing the trials on J&J. I started this show talking about that to see what a second J&J does. So I think you're probably okay, and I would listen to your rheumatologist because they know what's up with you. Oh, where are we here? Where are we at? Would that be a reason to get vaccinated if you already had... Oh, what would be a reason to get vaccinated if you already had COVID? Sovereign Soul. That's a great moniker. Okay. Here's why you would want to get vaccinated if you've already gotten COVID, and I'm not saying everyone should do this, but here's a reason. It acts as a booster, kind of like we're talking about boosters for vaccines. You got natural immunity, that's vaccine 1. The second shot may act as like that booster that gives you really robust immunity against reinfection and severe disease. You already have immunity against severe disease, less immunity against reinfection, but it's there. So there's nothing, you can't make a wrong decision because the vaccine's safe. You can't make a wrong decision for you. But I'd say this, that'd be why. Like, I'll tell you what I would do. Let's say I got COVID early in 2020 and now Delta's coming and, It's rampant in my community. And maybe I'm, a little older, like I am. I'm 48. I don't really want to get COVID. I don't even want to get a reinfection if I can avoid it. I'd go get the mRNA vaccine, at least 1 dose. And I'll tell you why I would get 2 doses, because I don't want to have to deal with someone asking me for my vaccine passport when I can just be like, yeah, I did it, because I know the vaccine is going to be okay for me. So it doesn't bother me to have to do that. But that's me. You have to parse it through your own values. You may say, look, I got naturally infected. Fuck your vaccine passport. I'm not getting the vaccine. Cool. You didn't make a wrong choice. You really didn't. That's how I think about it. Have you heard the theory of graphene oxide apparently being found in Pfizer vaccine? Chet Tameen. Yeah, it's nonsense. I mean, I talked to the people who manufacture this stuff. They're like, what? Where are they? Where is this even coming from? It's usually people who have an incentive to peddle this kind of misinformation. Lambda is next, Robert Simpson. Let's talk about Lambda, the Peruvian fluvian. So Lambda, again, in silico, seems to have a little bit of vaccine resistance, but not full vaccine escape. Don't know how lethal it is. Don't know how transmissible it is. Don't know much about it. It's got to be, here's the bottom line, it's got to be better than Delta in terms of transmissibility to actually become dominant. You almost want Delta to hang around if Lambda's worse in terms of lethality or resistance to vaccine. But if it is really, truly resistant to vaccine, which I don't think it is, you would expect it to see it start to infect vaccinated people. So we'll see, because I think it's in Dallas or Houston somewhere. It's going to show up, right? But I actually do think that these viruses are going to run out of tricks that make it really much better. So stay tuned. Stay tuned on that. Robert Whitaker, thanks for the super chat. Thanks, Z-Dog. Really appreciate your expertise in reasonable thinking in time of extremes. Helps my family navigate all the craziness. My wife, Carrie, says hello and F off venting. Carrie, fucking A. Love you. Love Robert. Thanks for the love. You guys are the best. Scotty McCregles says, isn't another reason to get the vaccine if you've had COVID-19 because a new variant can come out that avoids natural immunity more so than vaccines? All right, Scotty, that's actually great. I shouldn't have done that in a Scottish accent because that shit's legit. All right. The vaccines, to quote Dave Persing, who I just interviewed, it's going to come out shortly, the guy who basically runs and founded the company that does the testing for coronavirus. He pointed out this, that the vaccines cause unnatural levels of antibodies, like really ridiculously awesome levels of antibodies, which means that even if a virus comes out that can evade natural immunity, it's going to have trouble evading vaccine immunity. Vaccine immunity is more robust in that way. Now, how long that robust immunity lasts is a question, which is why they talk about boosters now, which is a whole nother thing. And so you can think about it. You can think about it that way. That's another way to think about it. I think it's a little speculative, but so is a lot of what we do. Now, so again, if you're saying, why would I, if I've had COVID, why would I go get vaccinated again, even though I've got natural immunity? That could factor in. You go, well, I just want the most robust immunity I can have against mostly severe disease and even reinfection because I don't want to transmit. If that's how you feel, man, go get vaccinated by all means. And again, I would do it. I would do it. Absolutely. But you should be allowed to make that decision, right? Yeah, Jaxel, that's this Dr. Hoff thing. Stay tuned. I'll just do a show on it. Ball Boys, nope. I like that. Amber Warch sent me $10 and says, #1 fan. You are so awesome. The super chat's been killing it today. You know what? Maybe I should just go live to YouTube from now on. Only YouTube. I shared it on Facebook, the link to YouTube, and on Locals. But I just really like the vibe here. I really do. It's easy, too. Logistically for me, I can just see one stream of comments. It's really, really clean. You guys want to keep going or should we stop? It's almost 11:30 Pacific time. We've been going for quite a while, but let's keep going. Because as you know, I've already cursed so much, no one's going to share this video. Marion, it's not illogical because the form of the proteins would matter rather than the quantity alone. The form matters, but if you have enough neutralizing antibodies, sometimes it's just a numbers game. Like the virus tweaks a little bit to avoid, like it's a little less sensitive to vaccine. Well, now you have so much antibody, or it's a little less sensitive to natural infection. Now you have so much antibody that you can overwhelm that sensitivity. John Fox, what do you think motivates these forever maskers? Is it just that medical professionals are programmed to tunnel on condition of issue regardless of aspects of life? In other words, tunnel vision. Okay, I'm gonna put this mask on while we talk about this just to show how ridiculous it is. All right. Okay, where to even begin? All right, real quick. I can't do it. I can't. The mask gives me claustrophobia. All right, and I'm a medical professional. I wear N95 masks. It's like, those are really claustrophobic. The masking thing is a moral palate issue. It is how it's got so many components to it that you can't reduce it to anything. Okay, the first is, what's your political affiliation? It's a tribal identifier. I'm left, I wear a mask. I'm right, I think masks are dumb. Great. I'm simplifying it. It's not true for everybody. I'm just saying, here are the aspects that go into it. Then you've got the science debate about it. Do they work for the public? Michael Osterholm has said, who's, you know, an epidemiologist often cited, they don't do shit unless it's an N95 for the public. You got to distance. Like, he's an advocate of full, you know, locking down and distancing as the only way to stop, you know, this airborne virus. And then you got people who say, no, it reduces inoculum. It does help. It reduces droplets. And then each side will cite data, correlation versus causation, saying, oh, look, mask mandates happen, rates come down. Oh, yeah, mask mandates happened because rates were going up and they were going to come down anyways, because that's a natural course of a pandemic. But then you look at in-hospital transmission rates, and they're quite low. People are wearing masks, usually surgical masks. So does the type of mask matter? Does the overall hygiene level matter? How does that then interact with vaccination? Personally, I hate these, but I understand even if it makes some people feel better, I'm willing to wear it in certain situations. I am never willing to wear a mask outside because that's anti-scientific, unless you're in a prolonged crowd where you're crammed together for long periods of time. If they say you've got to wear a mask on the sidewalk, they can fuck off. I don't care what the mandate is. I'm doing civil disobedience because it is anti-scientific. That's just an overreach of stupidity. Now, there's also an aspect of this called safetyism, where people seem to think that we need to keep every single person safe from every single thing at whatever cost. And they don't look at the cost. Like you said, it's tunnel vision. That's not a good way. I don't think that's a good way to look at things. I think you need to look at things more holistically. What's the downside of masking? Now, some people say no downside, but that's because their moral palate doesn't see a downside. Other people are like, this is ruining my business. People can't wear a mask in here. How am I going to go to a meditation retreat if I have to wear a mask? You know, this kind of shit. So it's like that. Matt Coakwell, who's a supporter. Did we talk about COVID in children on this live chat yet and reported kids are getting really sick from Delta yet? Just got on. So we haven't talked about that specific thing. Kids are getting really sick from Delta is just because Delta's everywhere. So by nature, who are the unvaccinated people? It's young kids. A lot of places opened up a lot, so the kids are getting infected. Schools are going to open. You're going to see kids infected. So by sheer numbers game, you're going to see more kids in hospitals. Percentage-wise, in terms of percentage of the at-risk population that gets sick, in other words, the infection fatality rate or the rate of MISC is probably not changed. But we don't have data, so how do we know? Who's really digging into this? It's great for the news to say this is a disaster for kids, right? And pediatricians feel this way because they see the sickest kids in their ICUs. So of course they're going to feel that way, and it's appropriate. But what's really true? Are we panicking parents? Are we stigmatizing children? What downside does this have on children's mental health and adult mental health? And if we dare shut down schools again, oh my God, we're all going to lose our shit. So, except for the Zoomocracy, the people who can afford it, who love it, who have private tutors, who have great Wi-Fi and broadband internet and can live like this forever and love it because they hate people secretly and overtly. That may be me, actually. Ballboy says, I want to talk about Z's increasingly lustrous forehead. Am I shiny? Let's see. Yeah. I didn't take a shower today, so sometimes I get a little oil buildup, you know, because I'm a sweaty motherfucker. Yesterday we went and had Mexican food in Half Moon Bay, and I'm gonna say this publicly because I'm proud of my I'm comfortable in my manliness to be able to say this. When I eat anything that is tangy, not necessarily spicy, but tangy, like ketchup, like vinegar, that has a vinegary kind of tang, I will perspire, but only on one half of my forehead and this half of my head. And so you'll see like beads of sweat form on half my head. And then I'll have to take I'll be like one of those old men. Like, oh man, woohoo! It's really spicy. They're like, we're eating a hot dog with ketchup. I'm like, yeah, woo! It's hot. No clue why. There's a syndrome, I think it's called phase syndrome, where anything that your salivary nerves are rerouted to sweat glands. And so anything that would make me salivate, like I see something like tangy and you get that salivary release, it'll cause sweating. I can think myself into sweating. Isn't that amazing? Now you know, and knowing is half the battle. Son is 10 and in puberty. Where'd the comment go? Damn it. They scroll really fast. You guys are on fire today. Where is it? Oh, I'm so sorry. I totally lost that comment. Son is 10 and in puberty. I got to find it now. Come on. It's lost. Yeah, it's cranial nerve 7, Vladimir. Dude, your sweat glands have hemiparalysis. Ball boys, I call it hemiperspiration. I hemiperspire. Michael McCollum hit me with the super chat. COVID-19 can apparently cause erectile dysfunction, according to Rina Malik, MD. Why are we not talking about this? It was my incentive to get the vax. Dude, talk about my dingus and I'll do anything. Anything. I suspect that's apocryphal, honestly. You know, you can cause vascular disease with COVID, with microclotting with COVID. So maybe. I mean, anything can happen. Hands off my junk, COVID. All right? I don't want Wuhan in my pants. That's apparently racist. Sherry Valenzuela, please do a guided meditation live. Dude, you know what? Okay, real quick, for people who hate meditation, we'll make this quick, all right? Because there's not much to it. It's all you really need, and you can do it anytime. Always here, without exception, for as long as you can remember, and even before you could remember, has been the present moment. This, whatever it is. You can't put your finger on it. You can't put words to it. It's a presence. It's a kind of a sense of being. How do you even know you're alive and awake? You just know. Like, of course I'm having an experience right now. You just know it. Drop everything you're doing and look there. Look at that knowing. It's a deep, silent presence. It's now. It's the silent moment, the presence from which every experience arises. And it's always been right here, right now. All you have to do is look. Let all our reflective filters in awareness, all thought, going to memory, going to imagination, going to projection, going to worry, let it drop and let your attention rest in this moment. That's it. And anytime you remember to do that, you're free. Any suffering, anything going on, any anxiety, you can learn to put your attention in this no thing that is the now, and everything else is just like clouds across the sky, because you're the sky. That's it. Death is an illusion, says Zunar. Birth and death are illusions, both. Matt McLeod talking about VAERS. Ooh, that might be too hard of a transition for me. Hold on. Meditation keeps me sane. Well, sane as I get, says psychotherapist Solzie's Jules. That's awesome. There's a saying in Zen, thinking is the disease of the human mind. It really is. Without thought, discursive thought that makes us think, I, me, I'm thinking, I'm the subject. When that relaxes and there's just being, suffering ends. And that's just the top of the rabbit hole. If you're willing to look, it goes really deep. Like as deep as you want to look. And it's here now. You could look right now. It's in front of your face. We just apparently hide it in the house of mirrors that is thought and perceptual filters and space and time, which are thoughts. They're thought-based constructs. All right. Melissa Cagle. Hazy, when this doctor thing is done, you should do a meditation videos. You have that calming voice. Well, you know what's funny? The first half of this video, I was like, fucking shit, fuck. It's all where you put your attention. It's all where you rest your attention. When I talk to you about meditation, like I just did, I am speaking from presence. I am putting my attention in presence, and words come out. There's no thought, just words are coming out. I have no idea where these words are coming from. They're happening right now. Try it. They just come from nowhere. You don't need thought to tell you what to say. You could stop everything right now and do nothing but listen, put all your attention on the sounds in the room. Whether it's my voice, whether it's birds chirping, whatever the sounds are in the room, drop every other perception and listen. If you're lucky, you get a break in between thoughts and there's just sound. Look there. That's another door to presence. Love is all there is, man, says Grand Vlog. This reminds me of the 1976 swine flu scare, walking tall. That's an interesting observation. We should talk about that sometime. Donna Friedrich, oh my God, he's Joe Biden. Are you saying because I've just zoned out? This is turning into yoga class. Ruby Ray. All right. We did a thing. We're the infinite experiencing itself in finite form. Yes. The infinite arises as the finite mind. It creates space and time, birth and death, separation, I and thou. And you can take that and step back into the infinite form at any point. And the beauty is you can exist simultaneously as both. And then, You're really living a life. Christine Live, $50 on the super chat. I'm answering this one. My dad developed hemolytic anemia 13 days after Moderna. Needed rituximab to stop the reaction. I'm not anti-vax. Curious why this happens. Immune over-response after treatment. He still has COVID antibodies. He's 82. No boosters, right? Ooh. Okay, now I can't give you medical advice for your dad, but I'm going to say this. So hemolytic anemia can happen from a lot of things. It can happen spontaneously. It can happen from medications. Hemolytic anemia from vaccines, very unusual. You can get low platelets, ITP, idiopathic thrombocytopenic purpura, in kids from MMR. It's a rare complication and it's reversible. Hemolytic anemia, unusual. Looking at the data, both from trials and post-marketing surveillance, there was not a signal that showed that this happens at a higher rate than it would in the background population. So there's a couple of possibilities with your dad. He is a rare case where this did happen due to the vaccine, and the vaccine triggered an immune response that caused hemolytic anemia, is where your red blood cells burst, and they can be an autoimmune thing where the cells are attacked by whatever and they burst. It can be a mechanical thing where there's a problem like a mechanical heart valve that's chewing up your blood. It can be those sort of things and others, but so it could be that it was actually the vaccine, but be a little weird. Not out of the realm of the possible, but weird. Or again, it's just random, or there's some other drug he's on that caused it, or he got infected with a virus that caused hemolytic anemia. There are infections that can do that. So any of the things are possible. And what I'll say is, would I get him a booster? So he's already been fully vaccinated with Moderna. How do you feel? What's your intuition? I would talk to his doctor and make a decision. But I'd say I would take the hemolytic anemia into account, just in that if he is a rare thing, you want to take that into account. It also depends on how sick he got, but it looks like he needed rituximab to stop the reaction. So yeah, that's how I think about that. Again, I'm not your doc, so I can't give you solid advice. Vicinity of Obscenity says, can we discuss what's happening in Afghanistan? I mean, no, because I'm not a politician, but I'll say this, what a shit show. We kind of saw it coming in 2002 when everyone was saying, hey, the Soviets couldn't do this. How are we? And whether you think it's a Biden hot potato, that he just got landed with it and so on, or he just screwed it up, doesn't matter what you think, it's a mess. We've abandoned people that depended on us to be tortured and killed by the Taliban. I will say in no uncertain terms that the Taliban are pieces of fucking shit. So there's that. This is one thing to understand about something like the Taliban or ISIS or any of these guys. You have a medieval level of evolution of a society. I'm not talking about Islam, by the way. I'm talking about the Taliban. Okay. They come from a place where the societal evolution is still blue mythic magic, superstition, and men are in charge and all this other stuff. No science, whatever. No music, whatever. So this very early kind of human development. They're stuck there in terms of techno-economic and socio-economic development. But then their spiritual development. So they may have had the same sort of mystical experiences that I point to when I say you can look here now and see what happens. An awakening experience, right? So they may have that experience, which is profoundly life-changing, and then come back and interpret it through their socioeconomic stage of development, which is medieval. And how would that manifest in the world? It doesn't manifest as, hey man, let's go do yoga and save the planet. It manifests as, hey, I could strap a bomb to myself and blow up a bunch of people that are heathens, and I'll go straight to that place that I experienced, heaven. So We got to think about that, which means we have to nudge people up to higher levels of development while working on our spiritual awakening. We need both to save us, to save all of us. Otherwise, we will self-destruct. We'll kill each other. We'll kill the planet. We'll do all that shit. And you know I'm not no fucking hippie. Like, I'm just saying this as a fact. We need these things. That's why I made it part of my show to talk about awakening. I've made it part of my show to talk about alt-middle. Alt-middle is one of the highest levels. It's integral level thinking where you go, oh, there's a little partiality in all views. All the previous stages of development were necessary for us to get where we are. And let's use rational discourse, science when it's appropriate, spirituality when it's appropriate, and integrate it all into what it means to be human in the present moment, living with love and compassion. Ooh. And then wake that up with a spiritual awakening where you realize, hey, I'm not this. I'm this. We're all the same. Holy shit, you've just solved every problem we could throw at ourselves, conceivably. But instead, we have what we have. So that's what I think about Afghanistan. Well, that's it. TPK, Zay dared Z. He better do it now. Who's TPK and what they dare me to do? Would be like Biden without his teleprompter. I dare him. Okay, what are you daring me to do, TPK? I'm scrolling back. I don't know what we're... Joe Rogan with Pierre Corey or Robert Malone would be great. No comment. Even though what you say is serious and important, I love listening to you because you add comical to it. I don't laugh often, but when I do, I listen to you. Great, thank you. That means a lot to me, Jan. That's actually the highest praise you could give me, and I don't do that consciously. I just do what I do, and some people like it and some don't. All right, I think we should go. You know why? My buddy Dr. Harry's texting me, and he wants to exercise in his garage at home where we have this ratchet weight bench, and we spot each other with things like this. Bro, come on. Push it. And people think it's an American Beauty kind of gay situation, which it may be. All right. Thank you. This was a lot of fun for me. Thank you for the 400,000 subscribers on YouTube. It means so much because I just love being able to hang out with you guys. All right. Until next time, I got to figure out how to stop this. Share the video. Subscribe if you haven't, by the way. And when you subscribe, there's a little notification bell on YouTube that will then send you notifications when I do a show. So please do that. It really means a lot. And it